¿Ya estando la música ya empieza?
I Love Micheladas.
What's up? Hey, welcome to the I Love Micheladas Show. I'm here with the homie Ricky Rivera. 3 R's, Ricky Rivera.
That's right. And thank you for
Full
having
name.
me. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming, dude. Welcome
I'm
to
happy
the
to
house.
be here.
Thanks for coming to the show. And so you've been brought up by a bunch of people already. People always like SoCal Cerveceros, Ricky, talk to him, do all these things. I was like, yo, we gotta get this guy on.
In my short life, I've done a lot of different things within LA, so
Yeah.
I have friends in many circles.
Yeah, man. And
Music,
you know,
beer.
and you were telling me I knew about the beer stuff, but the music. Well, but first of all, let's start with the name, because it's Ricky Rivera.
Right.
So 3 names, 3 R's. And you're telling me you didn't always go by the three names.
So I was born as Ricky Rivera. It's not a stage name. I didn't make it up. It's not my rapper name. Because people.
Although you were a rapper.
That's true, and people ask me, but up until I was like 24, 25, I would just go by Ray Rivera. And I believe I was 24, right before my birthday. I met somebody who said they were a clairvoyant. They could read
How old were you?
auras, like 24.
24.
They could read 23, 24.
Okay.
Anyway, they're clairvoyant, you know, they're kind of
Yeah.
psychic and whatnot. And this person told me that if I use my full name, Ricky Rivera, that a lot of good would come from it, because I would be vibrating at a higher frequency.
Okay.
And at the time, I was unemployed. I was trying to get a job. I was deep in my pursuit of my music career. So I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. You know. So I started going by Ricky Rivera. One of the first things that happened is I went to the bank. I don't know why I was at the bank, because I was unemployed, but I was at the bank, and the
Have to go visit your money.
Yeah, right. And the teller looks at my ID and she says, Ricky Rivera. That sounds like a famous name. And I was like, well, I guess we'll find out one day, right? But that year, on my birthday, I got 2 job offers.
Oh shit.
And then a lot of stuff just kind of happened, and so I don't know if it was coincidental or it's because I used my full name. So ever since then, I started Ricky Rivera.
And now you made it all the way to I Love Micheladas Show. So I guess you're right. You are famous now.
Right. There we go. Now we know.
Yeah, that's dope, dude. So you're saying you started as a musician, right? Because like you're deep in your passion. Did you start that in high school? How early were you in the band?
So I'm from Boyle Heights. East LA area. Specifically, I'm from Ramona Gardens housing projects. So shout out to everybody from PJs. There's a lot of us out there. I went to Wilson High School, and I met a group of friends. Most of them were already in the marching band or jazz band in high school. And around that time, I was learning how to play guitar, drums. I started messing around with writing lyrics, getting really deep into hip hop music.
Were you in any of those bands?
I was not, but I was taking private instruction on my own.
And when you saying you're deep into hip hop, what were you listening to?
At that time, a lot of Tribe Called Quest, Cypress Hill. Shortly after that, deep into like stuff like Mos Def and all the
what they call now the conscious rap.
Yeah, backpack rappers. Really, I was into a lot of the LA stuff. Excuse me. You gonna edit that out?
Wow, there's no editing.
I was into like 2Mix, Jurassic 5, Dilated People, like all the LA West Coast freestyle fellowship, like all of it. I was just soaking it all up.
That's dope.
Anyway, so hooked up with these guys from my high school who were in this band. Joined the band. The band was named East LA Sabor Factory. I was about 17.
Which is a super dope name.
Thank you. It's super long. And that band, we started gigging in high school and started ditching class to go play gigs in San Diego. And one thing led to another. We found ourselves, touring with bands like Ozone Motley and opening up for Los Lobos.
Damn, that's good. And you were touring like all over the state, country?
At that time, pretty much up and down the West Coast.
That's super dope though. At like 17, 18, 16?
Yeah, 18. It really started to take off right after high school.
Man.
Right in my freshman year of college. And I pretty much had to decide, like, at the time I was contemplating going to San Diego State or staying in LA, going to Cal State LA so that I could play music.
Pursuing the whole music thing, hardcore.
And ultimately I stayed in LA, went 1 year in college and decided, this is not for me. I'm going to just stick with the band and see.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, and so through that, I met a ton of people because with East LA Sabor Factory, we did TV, we did film, we were in some movies.
What movie were you in?
Let's see, we got a song in the film Collateral with Jamie Foxx and
no way.
Tom Cruise.
Damn.
There's a scene where Jamie Foxx is going into a club and he's talking to a bouncer.
I remember that movie.
There's like a salsa song in the background. That's us. But
that movie takes place in LA. It's like in Koreatown.
Yes.
The whole area.
And so we had some opportunities like that, and that was a good like 5-6 years of that band. And through that, I have a lot of people that I know still today from back then.
That's crazy.
And but I did a solid like decade of music, from performing in a band to solo, to starting my own record label, Triumphant Records. I launched it out of a bedroom in my grandmother's apartment. So I know a lot of different people in the music, in the LA music scene.
Yeah, that's super dope. And then how did it tail off? Like you said, because you did 10 years, why did it stop at 10 years?
That's a good question. Well, in 2010, my wife and I got married.
Okay.
And
that'll change things up.
That year, I was performing as Ricky Rivera. I had a full band behind me. I had a record out that I released in 2007 called.
What was the record called?
Neighborhood Fame.
Neighborhood Fame.
It's still available online.
Cop it.
Neighborhood Fame.
It's on Spotify?
Check it out. It is on Spotify.
Link, click it right here somewhere.
Yeah. I was working on a record, and my wife is pregnant with our son, and I think my priorities changed a lot, and I just wasn't as into. When you're a musician, you got to hit the road, you got to tour, you have to be constantly performing live. Yeah, and
it's grimy.
And if you're looking to draw an income from that, you got to perform live because you're getting paid to perform, you're getting paid from your merch sales, and you're pushing your products, And so I didn't want to I had been doing this since I was 17, and at this time when my wife was pregnant, I was about to be 30, and I had this whole grand vision of doing this album, and then I didn't. I got halfway through it. It's still an unfinished project that I hope to still one day release, but I probably won't be out there touring and gigging. And so instead of just walking away from music and saying, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, because I still love being creative. I love writing songs. I love being in the studio. I just didn't want that to be my life 24/7.
Yeah.
I got a family. I want to be there.
You want to live it.
Yes, exactly. So at that time, I decided to continue with my record label, help out some other local bands, put out their music, because putting out somebody else's music doesn't require me to go and perform.
Yeah, you don't have to be on stage.
Yeah, I could just do all the stuff.
You book them.
Exactly. That led me to working with bands like Buya Pongo, Chicano Batman. I did a compilation under my DJ alias called DJ. It's called Juan Lennon Presents 213 Cumbia Volume 1. And this is 2011, 2012.
How many aliases do you have?
Just two.
Just two?
And so I did this compilation, and at that time I was heavy into the local cumbia scene. And as you know, cumbia is like global now, and it's still very popular. It's
still very, I mean, I feel like it's like a resurgence in the last couple 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
Definitely. There's definitely no shortage of cumbia bands in LA. So we do this compilation, put it out, distribute it to Japan. It does well. And I started booking a couple shows to promote the project.
In Japan?
Not in Japan. I was not in Japan, but
did you ever make it out of Japan?
No, not yet.
Oh man,
it's on my bucket list.
We got to take you.
Yeah, let's go. And so anyway, I needed to choose one of the bands on the compilation to promote the record. So I hooked up with Buya Pongo. We did some shows, and as a result of working with them, this is early on. This is early Buya Pongo, for if you're familiar with the band, and I mean they're pretty well known in LA now. They performed at Smorgasburg. Oh, they have? Cool, awesome. Yeah, they're pretty well known now. Yeah. At the time, they didn't have a lot going on. Like, it was really early for them. Like, they didn't have a bio. They didn't have, it was really early. So I noticed that, and I just offered to help. So I helped book a few shows, that led to me helping some other bands, and then I was like, why don't I just do this? Why don't I just manage bands? And so I started Golden Glue Management, which is kind of like a boutique management firm, myself, out of my home office.
Out of Norwalk?
Yes, yeah, Norwalk. At the time, Boyle Heights, but Norwalk. I've been in Norwalk since 2009.
All right.
And I went into management, and I started booking bands and working with artists who were really early in their career, who were like struggling to get gigs in LA, who didn't know about trying to license their music to film and TV, things like that. Didn't have a bio.
They don't have the multiple revenue streams. They just thought it was just records.
Exactly. And with management, it was that I love that kind of work, because it's like if you're an artist, you have all these dreams, you have all these goals you want to achieve, but you don't know how to do it in the music industry. And for somebody like me, like I've had my hands in every single facet of the industry, from performing live to music publishing to booking talent to promoting shows. And I was like, I could just show you what I know, and help you kind of expedite that, or kind of navigate, that industry. And so that's what I did, and that work I found very fulfilling, because there's nothing like working with an artist who's never gotten paid for a gig, and then you book them their first like $1,200 guarantee, and they're like, oh my god, this is the most money I've ever made, and it just never gets old. That's awesome.
Do you kind of like revisit your first time feeling that every time you do that with an artist? It's kind of like,
I think so, yes. Yes.
What was the first time you got paid to perform?
We did a we did a show. I want to say it was a small music festival for Cal Arts College. I think it was Cal Arts, and they mailed us a check.
After the fact or before?
After. And,
so you didn't even know you were getting paid?
No, I didn't. At that time, no. We were just happy to
play.
Give us some soda and a hot dog and good, whatever.
A meal ticket.
Exactly. I think it was a $50 check, and I got the check, and it was for the gig, and I was like, what? I got money to perform? Like, it was a big eye opener,
And now you're doing that for other people.
Yes.
At this point of the story.
Right. And through that, other opportunities come up, and I have all these other ideas that I want to do and get into business ventures. And along the way, in 2014, my wife was pregnant again, giving birth to our youngest daughter. And unfortunately, there was some complications at birth. Everything turned out fine.
Yeah.
But at the time, there was some complications, and we had to spend the first month of our daughter's birth in the hospital, every day in the hospital. So I needed something to do. So I went to Barnes & Noble, picked up a stack of books that I thought were interesting. One of the books was called Brewing Up a Business by Sam Calagione, who's the founder of Dogfish Head Brewing Company.
It was 2014.
Yes. And in that book, he basically chronicles his story of going to college, getting into home brewing, ultimately launching Dogfish, which is now a multi-million-dollar corporation. And the story is just very inspiring. And at that time, I had this idea of opening my own bar and grill in the city of Norwalk, and with a focus on California craft beer on tap. And so I thought, well, if I'm serious about this business, I should learn all there is to know about beer and craft beer. And so that was one of the first books that I got into. And then that kind of sparked the interest of actually brewing.
Of making.
Yeah.
So now let's take a step back. At this point, you're already into craft beer.
Yeah, I was already...
How did you get into craft beer? Because I feel like people, it's like a slowly and then all of a sudden all at once, right?
Yeah, you go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I have this early memory of being at a party in Silver Lake, a random party somebody invited me to, and it just happened to be a lot of white people, because a lot of white people at the time lived in Silver Lake.
Yeah.
And,
still do.
And somebody was like, oh, there's some beer, help yourself. So I helped myself to a label, a beer with a green label, happens to be Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, right? Mm-hmm. Which now is like a classic pale. I remember tasting, I didn't know what it was. Take a swig, and I thought my face was melting. I was like, what the hell? Oh, this is nasty,
And before that, what were you drinking?
Just a typical Corona, Mickey's maybe, the occasional Mickey's.
That was your craft beer, Mickey's.
That's right, Corona, Modelo, just the typical, typical LA, Latino from LA in the hood, which you drink Bud Light, Budweiser, whatever we got for free.
Yeah, whatever
Pretty
you can
much.
find.
Yeah, whatever I got for free was pretty much Tecate, yeah.
So you found your pale ale, your face melted.
Right, and I was not feeling it. I was like, this is... And at that time, there was no like, oh, there's some craft beer.
Yeah.
There was no talk about craft beer or anything. Fast forward a few years, I used to hang out at a restaurant bar called Wylands. It was over in Little Tokyo. And they used to have their own beer on tap. They had like a blonde, a amber ale, and it's something else. But the amber ale, I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Later on, I found out that it was contract brewed by, I want to say Firestone, somewhere in California. I think it was Firestone, and they had another brewery in Anaheim that contract brewed for them. But that place was really my first introduction into...
The first time you liked it?
Yes. And I remember throwing a party at where I used to live, and we got a keg of the amber.
Damn.
The amber was so good.
Yeah.
And that keg went fast. All my friends enjoyed it.
So you were introducing other people in your circle, or was everybody in your circle already drinking craft beer?
I wouldn't say we were everybody in my circle. It depended on who I was hanging out with.
In what circle you were in?
Yeah, exactly. At that same time, a friend of mine was drinking Belgian beers. Chimay. And I remember seeing it and seeing a blue label, and I'm like, I thought it was wine.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. And then my friend was like, oh, you got to try this. This is Belgian. Like, this is not Tecate.
Yeah.
So that I started to dig a little bit deeper, but I knew that the amber was not something that I was normally into. Like, I knew it was different.
Yeah.
And that kind of got me into seeking out other beers. Like, well, if I like this amber, what else is out there? If my friend hit me to the Chimay, what else is out there?
Was there a point where you only drank craft beer? Like, was there like a point of no return where like now you can't even drink the old stuff anymore?
Definitely, yeah.
Was that pretty early on, or like more?
No, early on it was still like
whatever you can find, and then whenever.
Is the price point is a little higher than So I was.
So it's a lot stronger.
Yeah, definitely. But my buying habits were more about what my budget would allow when I did have, a budget to buy beer, as opposed to what I preferred. Yeah. Now it's I pick and choose depending on what I'm doing. When I started home brewing, so after the book, and I'm like, if I'm really serious about opening a bar business, I need to know the ins and outs of beer. If I want to get into craft beer, I want to know the ins and outs. So I need to know how it's made. So reading that in the book that Sam homebrewed a 5-gallon batch of some cherry ale, whatever, it didn't sound too hard. So I went online, got
a kit?
Yeah, I got a starter kit, a 1-gallon starter kit, brewed it on my stove. 2 weeks later, have a bottle of beer. I go to
2 weeks.
Well, yeah, like 2.5.
Okay.
It's an extract kit, a bottle conditioned. Yeah, you could turn it around in 2 weeks.
Nice.
It was like an American wheat ale.
Okay.
That's what it was. Anyway, so I have this bottle. It's capped, and I'm like, okay, let's try it. So I open it, and there's the hiss, and I'm like, oh,
it's real.
Sounds like beer.
It sounds like beer.
Smells like beer. Take a swig, and I'm like, it tastes, it's not amazing, but it tastes like beer, you know? And I blew my own mind. I was like, I did this on the stovetop, like, this is crazy. And so I did it again a few more times, and by the third time I was hooked. I was like...
Were you getting better, or were you just experiencing with different things? Were you like trying to perfect that one thing?
I don't know. I wasn't getting better. I was just trying to, I just trying to understand the process, like... You're getting water, you're heating up the water, you're boiling the water, you're adding the ingredients. It's kind of like making soup. Yeah. It just getting comfortable with, like, because at first you're like looking at the directions, and you're like step by step, and I'm kind of like paranoid, and when you talk to homebrewers, there's a big emphasis on being sanitary, being clean. Yeah. And so, I want to be clean and not mess it up. It's actually pretty hard to mess up.
Would you say, well, because the process is, fermentation is like rotting, right? It's like a type of controlled
I guess you could call it rotting.
I mean, that's why I always describe like mezcal and tequila, right? It's like controlled rotting, guided rotting.
Yes.
In like the very rudest kind of terms.
Yeah.
But I forgot what I was gonna say. Anyway.
But that's how I ended up going deeper into craft beer, because once you start brewing, if you want to brew, say, a Scottish red ale and you don't know what that tastes like, you go and get Scottish red and you taste it, and then you can either reverse engineer or you can go buy
a kit. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. Would you compare brewing more to baking or cooking?
Oh, that's a good question. Baking or cooking?
So baking, when I talk to bakers, they always say it's like I'm like a scientist. It's like about the measurements,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yes.
Whereas cooking is more like a little more freestyle. You taste it and you add it here and there.
Right, because with cooking, like again, soup, right?
Yeah.
You and I can make the exact same soup, and it'll taste different because maybe you put a little bit more salt, or I put less, or
or I stirred it differently, or whatever.
Exactly, or exactly. And same thing with like baking, with brewing. There's specific measurements. There's a specific amount of water you're going to use. Mm-hmm. There's a specific amount of hops you're going to use. Your grain bill, whether you're using Pilsner wheat, wheat malt, or what have you, there's going to be so many pounds, because everything that you use is going to yield a specific outcome. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's closer to baking, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, because back to brewing, cooking the same kind of soup, we could both brew a pale ale and both use 10 pounds of grain, but I'm using different types of grain than you. It's going to taste different. It's the same style of beer, same pounds of grain, but it's going to taste different because,
It's like making bread, no?
Sure, yeah. And bread, you're using yeast.
Yeah.
So yeah, very similar.
That's cool. So then you started homebrewing, and then how did this whole SoCal Cerveceros thing started? Who was the first kind of person you linked up with? Or was it organic? Was it very intentional?
It's a little bit of both. So I get this homebrew kit, right? And before I actually brew the kit, like I don't know anybody who's homebrewing. Nobody I know, like in my family. Like this is just left field. Like I told my wife, I'm gonna buy a homebrew kit, and she was like, "What are you talking about? What is?" Did
you get clowned on by anybody? Was there anybody that you tell?
No, it was this is pretty private. Until I said I went to Facebook because I know, hey, is anybody on here a homebrew or happen to homebrew? I have some questions. No, none of my homies that I know forever chimed in because nobody knows. And then this one dude messages me, and he says, "Hey, what do you need? I've been homebrewing for a few years." I was like, "What? I don't even know who this guy is." And so we're messaging. He's like, "Yeah, I actually know you because I've gone to some of your shows at Mel's Bar. I've seen you DJ and I've seen some of the shows that you promoted. So I'm a fan of some of the bands that you've had on your shows or whatever. But I'm a home brewer." And so we meet up. Well, I'm asking him questions first, back and forth, and then we just kind of developed this relationship via direct message. And he's kind of giving me pointers and tips, And then we set a time to actually meet up. And we meet up in person, have some beers, and he's telling me how he wants to open up a brewery one day. And it's just casual talk. And this is the first time I'm a first brewer friend of mine, Turns out that this guy is one of the members in the group Brujeria company.
Nice. Who
now has a actual brewing.
Yeah, they just opened up, right?
Ricky Rivera. Yeah. So through that conversation, we both shared that when going to homebrew shops, we kind of felt out of place because you go to a homebrew shop, the guy behind the counter is a white dude. Yeah. If somebody else is helping you with grain, that's a white dude. The customers coming in,
because that's kind of where my question was going, right? Because I talked to a lot of people and they're saying that that when they started, especially people who started like way early, when they would talk about either craft beer or home brewing, their homies will be like, "Oh, that's like white people stuff," right? Like, so I don't know, if you ever got that, or you just kind of felt it at the stores.
At this point, like
what year was this?
This is 2014.
2014.
Craft beer was already known, so it wasn't. So if I talked to it with my friends who are not into it, they already knew they knew a little bit about it.
Okay.
So I didn't get to oh, that's white boy stuff. Yeah. because that sounds like somebody who doesn't really know about it. That's what they would say, you know?
Yeah.
It was more about going to a couple homebrew shops and just feeling out of place. But nobody was actively...
Yeah, nobody was actively...
Right, it was just... I mean, and for people like us, brown people specifically, or non-white people in general, people of color, let's say, you know, if we go to a college campus and it's like 80% white and like 2% Latino, we're gonna feel out of place.
Yeah.
And it's the same scenario. So it just so happens that this is home brewing, and I was in the shop. I was asking a question to the guy who worked there, and I don't want to name the shop or the person, but I was asking a question because I generally didn't know, and his response to me, probably not on purpose, but made me feel like I should know the answer. Like, you know, this is like a
little elitist thing.
Yeah. And you get a lot of it in the homebrew community too, but it's just, but I don't think it's meant to like make you feel bad specifically. So anyway, I just kind of found out a place. If you go online and you search for homebrew questions and things, it's
the online community.
Yeah, but it's overwhelming. Like,
oh, okay.
Everybody has their own method. Like, you know, if you have a question about, let's say, kegging beer, you're gonna get 1,000 answers about kegging beer, and everybody says their way is the right way. And so I didn't have anybody to turn to. I felt out of place. Online, there was no like other. In any forum that I was in, I didn't see anybody with like a Latino last name or anything. You know?
Were you actively looking?
Not specifically for Latinos, but it's just something that was apparent to me for whatever reason.
It just stood out.
Yes, and so I started to think, well, maybe there might be a need. If I'm looking for this guy says he feels the same way. Maybe there's other people like us.
What was the name of the guy that you said was DMing you?
Agustin, he's one of the founders and partners of Brujeria company. Yeah. So he and I continued this conversation, and we basically had the same experience. And one day I was like, do you think like starting a club would be cool? Like, do you have any interest in that? And he was like, yeah, maybe. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about starting a homebrew club, but if you and I have this need for information, maybe there's some other people that do as well. And he basically was like, if you're down, I'm down. And then he said, I have a few friends that I brew with. I could see if they're interested. So he went back to his friends. I went back on Facebook and said, hey, we're gonna put together a little group if anybody's interested. A friend of mine, Richard Estrada, who back in the day was a host on a show called Illegal Interns. It was so he's in music too. He's a little older, but it's funny because when I was a teenager, I used to watch Richard on public access radio in East LA and got turned on to all the local music because of his show.
Oh, that's dope.
So Richard messages me, hey, I used to be in a homebrew club. I used to live in Phoenix or somewhere a few years back, and I joined the homebrew club and I was homebrewing for a little while. I haven't done it in a few years, but I'm interested in hanging out. Okay, like a guy I knew all this time.
Right off the bat.
Random, yeah. So we set a date.
It was a clairvoyant, dude. It was because you were going by 3 names.
That's right. So we set a date. There's 7 of us there. And this is our own little homebrew club. It's the very first meeting, 7 of us. And then from there,
What did you guys talk about the first club? Was it like,
it was more of like intro.
Like intro, like,
oh, hey,
this is who you are?
Ray. Yeah, I just started. I don't know shit. 1 gallon batch. And we're just shaking hands and kind of
like, hey, I'm having issues with this, and like people were like helping you out and stuff right off the bat.
Those conversations, yeah, they happened right off the bat. But it was more of an intro. That initial meeting, just kind of like they were all strangers to me except for Richard. Yeah, so you know, I'm just kind of feeling it out at first. Like, are these people I want to kick it with? Like, you know what I mean?
Is anybody too weird?
Yeah. Everybody was super cool. We had some beers. We tried some other homebrew.
Did everybody take their own beer to the first? Was it that kind of thing?
No.
Did you take any of your beer to the first meeting?
I don't believe I did, but the guys from Brujeria, like, they were already deep in home brewing. They had a bunch of gear. I
met them a while ago too. Really? I met them during an event where we took the Michemobile to this nonprofit, and they donated the beer.
Oh right, yeah, they've done a lot of work in the nonprofit sector, and they had beer. I remember they had beer that day, and I was just really like impressed, and I'm like, well, these guys know what they're doing, or they've been doing it for a while, so yeah, I should be friends with all these people. And so that happened on a Friday. The next month again, third Friday of the month, we were like, man, we need some women brewers, like a bunch of dudes hanging out. And it was really hard because women would come, they would hear about us. It was all through word of mouth at this, a lot of it. I mean, we were on social media just a little bit, not making a lot of noise. And it was funny because like I don't remember who it was, but I remember somebody coming, female coming, and like I remember the look on her face, like, it's a room full of guys.
Dudes here.
We'll have beer. And we never saw her again.
Damn.
But I got it. I was like, yeah. I mean, that could be intimidating. A bunch of strangers, a bunch of guys.
We need to soften up.
Right. So we're like, we need to work a little harder on this. And then, lo and behold, 3 new members came one day. They called themselves South Central Brewing Company. 2 guys and a 2 dudes and a girl. And that was the first time that we had an actual woman who was interested and not afraid, because she was there with her boyfriend. And that's Alex, Melvin, and Zanetta, who is actually the general manager at Angel City Brewing Company.
Oh, dope.
And so Zanetta has the distinction of being the official first woman SoCal Cervecero.
That's dope.
Member.
You should have her on. Real quick question. Because I always see like Breweria, and you said South
Central Brewing.
These names they give themselves.
Yeah.
Are they like actual companies they're setting up, or is it like an aspiring name where they're like, if we ever have a brewery, this is what we'll call ourselves?
It starts with, this is my dream company name.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because we have members who are in other clubs, clubs that are much older than ours, and nobody else does that. Like you can go to, like, let's say Long Beach homebrewers, right? They're a club that exists. You go there and it's a bunch of brewers, John, Rick, Fred, Jose, or whatever, but there's no I'm such and such brewing company.
Yeah, there's no or like the entrepreneurial kind of aspirational, would you say?
No, not so much that there's nobody there that has aspirations of being commercial, because there are and there have been in that club. Specifically, there's a guy named Derek from that club who's friends with us, who's also happens to be Latino, who's opening La Jara Brewing Company in Norwalk. He beat me to it, but he was from that club.
Where are they opening? Are they opening on Imperial? Like where the Chick-fil-A is? Who's opening in that corner? There's a brewery opening up there.
And no, it's La Jara is on oh my gosh, right off the 5. What is that street? I always forget this street.
Like where the Sizzler used to be?
No, this is on the other side. This is do you know where Lowe's is?
I think so, yeah.
So there's Lowe's right off the 5, directly across the road there. But you go to these other homebrew clubs, and there's no cliques, no groups that are like, I'm such and such brewing company. You come to SoCal Cerveceros, and that's all we are. Like,
yeah, because every time, I've met like a few people from SoCal Cerveceros now, like, and I met a few this Saturday at the Indie, their anniversary.
Oh yeah.
And everybody had their card, and everybody had like a so-and-so brewing company.
And that's one thing that stands out about our group. And people who come to us for the first time, they see that. Because like if you come to one of our events, one of our beer fests, which is our biggest one, is Cold Chela,
which is a super dope name.
Thank you.
You haven't gotten sued yet? You haven't gotten a cease and desist yet?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That's why we had to change the spelling. But when you come to one of our beer events, some of these brewers, man, they're on top of their branding. Branded canopy, branded cake, jockey boxes,
and they're not actual company. They're just people, or are they?
No. So in homebrew, when you have a homebrew festival, you can't be commercial.
Okay.
When you're doing a beer festival that has homebrew, there has to be a specific. There has to be a clear distinction. This is craft. This is commercial over here, and this is homebrew over here.
Okay.
So what we do is it's just all homebrew. but they look like they're commercial.
Yeah, they look. That's what I'm saying. Because like some of them look legit, and I'm like, and I go up to them and I'm like, hey, this is good. You know, like let me have you at Smorgasbord. But they're like, oh, we're homebrew. We can't really sell anything.
Exactly. Yeah. I have to say, like most of our homebrewers, they're on it. They're really good. They're producing quality beer that'll hold up to any commercial thing you go get at the store.
Yeah.
Not sometimes, but we've been to breweries because we have meetings. We move around monthly. There's been times where we've been to a brewery, we bring our home brew to share, and we buy beer from the brewery. And some of the home brewers are brewing better beer.
No, I can imagine.
The breweries, yeah.
Especially because like you guys probably have your own flavor profile, right? And the brewery has their own. It's like food, or it's like whiskey, or it's like tequila. Everybody has their idea of what it should taste like. Like right now, I have my idea of what beer should taste like right now. Probably changes every so often, right?
Right. There's that, and then there's just skill level.
Yeah.
You know, some of these guys are like scientists, chemists. You know, they're building water profiles. So they're taking water that has nothing in it, whether it's reverse osmosis water or if it's distilled water, and they're adding all of the salts. You know, to create a specific profile for the beer that they're brewing.
Yeah, water is so important.
Yeah,
so important,
and especially for beer. I mean, if you have bad water, you're gonna have bad beer.
Yeah.
So these guys are really about their craft, and not everybody in our club has crazy ambition to open up a brewery, because that's a big feat. Like that's a big undertaking, you know. And you know, just it's so
capital intensive.
The startup capital, yeah. Last year, 2 breweries opened. One being Brujeria Company in Pico Rivera, and last June, Feathered Serpent Brewing Company in San Dimas, both SoCal Cerveceros.
Is Progress also SoCal Cerveceros?
No, Progress is not. But Pacific Plate is.
Okay.
But Pacific Plate was opened prior to the club existing.
Oh, okay.
And the owners of Pacific Plate, Steven and his wife, Araceli, they also own the Monrovia Homebrew Shop.
Okay. Nice.
So they've been a huge help to us just on the homebrew front, hosting meetings, giving us a discount, providing us with ingredients for brew days for our club. And Steven is really awesome about helping you if you're interested in going into the industry. He'll like break down. The numbers and stuff. Yeah. He's always very helpful. But they're both members, and so we have Pacific Plate, Feathered Serpent Brewing Company, Brujeria, and now Cerveceria Mundial, which is a contract brewing company.
Yeah, he calls himself a gypsy brewery.
Yeah.
We had Julio over.
Yeah.
And that's actually what you brought today.
Yes.
You brought a Cerveceria Mundial collaboration. Tell me about this beer. So I'm trying to try this beer right now.
Yeah, I'm really happy about this beer. This is the first official collaboration for the Cerveceria Mundial brand, and it's with Liberation Brewing Company, which is a brewery in Long Beach. Shout out to Liberation, Eric and Dan over there.
They're in Long Beach?
They are in Long Beach. So our other partner, Fred Llamas, who's also in SoCal Cerveceros, suggested that we hook up with these guys, and he set up a meeting. We went down there. We met with the head brewer, Eric, and they were all about it. They were like, yeah, let's collaborate on a beer. And so we were going over ideas of what to do, and we noticed that they didn't have a blonde on tap. And Eric mentioned that they hadn't really made a blonde. And I was like, well, I have a recipe that I made, a homebrew recipe.
What is your recipe?
Yes and no. So I showed Eric my homebrew recipe, and he said, oh, this is cool. Yeah, I can work with this. And we were like, let's do it. So he made some tweaks, scaled it up to their system. And
it's a collaborative recipe.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what this is. So this is called Flor de Muerto, which we did as a collaboration for Dia de los Muertos.
Cheers. Oh man, that is smooth.
It's hopped with Galaxy hops. He also dry hopped it with some Galaxy, which gives it that little dankness at the end. And it's supposed to be a light, it's
super light.
It's American,
very crushable.
It's an American blonde ale. It's supposed to be crushable. You can knock a few back and still walk. And so it's not a high ABV beer at all. And this is actually my homebrew recipe is a blonde ale that I've been brewing for a few years now that I call Beady Beady Blonde Blonde. And it's one that I serve at Coachella every year.
I've seen that somewhere. I don't know.
Maybe online, Instagram.
Maybe I think yeah, because that name definitely stands out.
For everybody watching, Beady Beady Blonde Blonde by the Norwalk Brew House, aka Ricky Rivera. I'm in Norwalk. Norwalk Brew House is my ambition.
That's your ambition.
Yeah, that's my dream.
Because that was my next question. What's the future hold for Ricky Rivera and Norwalk Brew House?
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, this is I Love Micheladas Show. So
all right.
we try to make a michelada out of your baby blonde blonde collab.
Well, you're the expert. What do you think? Does it work?
Every beer's worked. Every beer's worked, man. It's so good. What do you think? Do you like micheladas? You don't have to.
I'm not a big michelada drinker. I have had them. I don't seek them out.
Yeah.
But I have a buddy, shout out to Francisco Castro Jr. from Boyle Heights.
He's 3 names for everybody.
He's a childhood friend of mine and big on micheladas. Like he's always drinking them.
Yeah, we gotta throw him a bottle.
Yeah, let's do it. And he's always like, "You gotta come with me. I gotta make you some." Like, I think it works, so I like it.
Yeah, I like it. I really like it. Well, I mean, it's worked. Honestly, we've made it with like dark beers, light beers, sours, everything.
This is actually from the very last keg of this collaboration. I have a keg in my garage. It's actually Julio's keg, and I'm just storing it.
Nice.
So I was like, yeah, I could bring some over here and share it.
Well, thank Julio. Thanks for the beer.
Yeah. Cheers. I'll drink this one.
So then, is the plan to open up a Norwalk brewery one day? Is that still the goal?
So,
because you're already committed to the city, unless you open up Norwalk Brewery Company somewhere else.
Right. Yes and no. When just like every home brewer, you start brewing, you get into it, you go into the rabbit hole, you join a homebrew club, and you're like, I'm gonna open up a brewery. It's like a guitar player. You learn how to play guitar, like I'm gonna
start a band.
Yeah. And that's like the dream, you know. And then you start getting into the details of what that entails.
Yeah, the numbers and everything.
And watching our friends go through the process. Again, it's capital intensive. You're probably at least 8 to 12 months waiting, doing your build out, getting your permitting, and
if that.
Right.
I mean, 9 months is very, very quick. That would be a very quick turnaround.
Right. So it's a long time. As I'm watching, observing, taking notes, now I'm part of Cerveceria Mundial. I'm seeing how we operate as a contract brewing company, where we don't have a specific a brick and mortar brewery. We go to a brewery, give them our recipe, they brew it for us, or we assist. We take packaged beer, we turn around, market, sell it, distribute it. So that's 2 different ways to go about the beer business. So I'm kind of in the middle. Recently, like I would say in the last month or so, my idea for my own business has kind of evolved. So I don't think I'm interested in opening a brewery or a microbrewery. First, it was Norwalk Brew House going to be a brew pub, half brewery, half restaurant. For one, it doesn't exist in Norwalk. There's not a lot happening there. You know, we have big chains. I don't want to give them any exposure, any more than they need. But
Norwalk is popping more and more. I mean, that AMC is super dope.
There's a bar in there. You can stone on
now you can. You have
but
that.
What else is popping besides the AMC?
I mean, I guess SoCal.
Besides the
SoCal Pizza.
You know about SoCal Pizza?
Yeah,
Shout out
SoCal
to Rick.
Pizza.
Rick is actually a very nice guy. One of the first places in Norwalk that I poured homebrew was at SoCal.
Oh, really?
For a fundraiser for the Norwalk Chamber.
Okay.
And I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting. I was like, I need to start meeting people in the city if I'm going to do this, So I go to the chamber. All these business people, introducing themselves. I'm from such and such insurance. I'm from SoCal
Such
Pizza.
And such towing company.
Right. They come to me and like, I don't have a business, but I homebrew. And so I was like, I want to open up what I call the Norwalk Brew House. And they all went, oh, because it's not there, So I was like, well, okay, cool response. Rick introduced himself and was like, hey, I want to know more about what you're doing. If I can help, let me know. So that's how I know about SoCal Pizza.
Okay.
And that led to him inviting me over to pour some homebrew for a fundraiser for the chamber. So that was really cool. So I'm looking at Norwalk and I notice, well, let's back up a little bit. When I was working with Buya Pongo, a lot of those guys are from Norwalk.
Okay.
And so when you're working with a band and you're going to book shows, the first thing you normally do is build your presence in the local market. So I'm looking around Norwalk and there's nowhere to book them.
Yeah.
There's no live venue. There's nothing. So that's why all those bands play out here, play, Hollywood, Echo Park, Orange County, Long Beach, not in Norwalk.
Yeah.
And so that's what got the wheels turning first. Like, there's a void here. I think there's a need. There's a lot of talent in Norwalk and in the surrounding areas because I know a handful of musicians and I've worked with them closely and there's nowhere to go. We need a stage. So I'm going to be the guy. So if I'm going to do that, what is it going to be? And then that kind of evolved into this idea of the brew pub.
The brew pub. And you would have a stage, I'm assuming.
Right. That's been my dream. The dream is to marry my passions, music and beer, craft beer. How do I make those two come together? And I was like, Norwalk Brew House, serve the craft beer, have the live music, bam.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like it in Norwalk. So that's where it started. Then as I got deeper into the home brewing scene, it was it started to become more about there needs to be a focus on brewing beer because no one's doing it in Norwalk. And I could see, like, if you look at Orange County, there's a really strong, long-standing craft beer scene, lots of breweries. You see what's happening in downtown in the Arts District. There was a huge boom, right? Lots of breweries now. Long Beach, same thing. And so Norwalk is kind of in the middle. You got downtown, OC, Long Beach, and I'm like, it's only a matter of time before this area, which is Norwalk, Artesia, Cerritos,
gateway cities,
La Mirada, right, Santa Fe. It's just a matter of time before somebody opens up and everybody jumps on the bandwagon.
Yeah. I mean, Board Rex just opened up in Southgate.
Right. And so I was like, I have to be the guy in Norwalk, because I'm here. We're raising our kids in Norwalk. I'm not going anywhere.
Man, you're Ricky Rivera.
That's right. It's Norwalk Brew House. It's 3 words. And so that became my dream, and it still is my dream. But now, again, after looking at what my friends are doing, learning more about the contract brewing business and beer business in general, I kind of want to do. I still want it to be Norwalk Brew House, but I don't think I want it to be an actual production brewery. You know? I still want to have that food element, but I want it to be. I don't want to say too much because I don't want anybody to watch this and be like, "We're going to do it first." But more of a
like BJ's.
You could say that, yes. But I feel I want to cater to the daytime crowd, so something for the daytime crowd, lunch crowd. Somebody needs to work from home. They need to go to a cafe, use the Wi-Fi. They can come there. Yeah. And then for the evening crowd, you can get something to eat with your friends, have a nice beer. But my focus is very hyper local. Because I'm from the community.
Yeah, that's what you need.
Yeah, and I know there's big plans for the city. It's already in motion. There's several areas that they're redeveloping. So you have these big time developers that are bringing in businesses. Like, as you mentioned, there's a Chick-fil-A, a Panera Bread just opened. Like another.
In that corner, I think there's a brewery opening up.
Really? Mm-hmm. I have to check in with.
I'll tell you the name in a little bit.
I have to check. Yeah, I've got some friends in the city that I can ask as well. But no, that whole area. Yeah, there's a lot of development happening. So there's not a lot of businesses that are being opened from the community, or they're not going to be. It's going to be big time. Whatever, big brands.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a need. There's a big void. And why not have somebody from the community opening something that's focused on the community?
I like it.
Yeah, and a lot of what, so I have ideas for beers that I've developed, recipes and names, and a lot of them are named after the city streets. For example, I have a Bloomfield Blonde.
The Volunteer.
What's that?
There's my wife lives off Volunteer, which is the weirdest name for a street. I'm always like, that's a weird ass name.
It is weird.
But it's cool. It's cool to have like a volunteer. It's a civic.
I've got a 562 IPA. things like that. You know,
Yeah.
that's. I mean, once you dig into the history of Norwalk, it's very interesting. We've had some pretty. I think who's tied to Norwalk? I want to say Nancy Reagan. Nancy Reagan.
I think so. I was gonna say Weird Al, but that's Linwood.
Weird. But you know, back in the day, it was known for its farming, for its dairy farms. And sadly, I think around 2013, 2014, the last farm in Norwalk was shut down and sold, and so that land is going to be redeveloped. So that history is very interesting to me.
Here's some milkshake IPAs.
There you go. And
what's next with SoCal Cerveceros?
Oh wow! So a lot. We're growing every year since we started. We've been growing. We started with 7 members. We're now approaching 200.
What does it take to join? Is there like a membership fee? Do you get a card? Can I pull out a card and be like, yo, I'm SoCal Cerveceros?
Yes, I actually was going to bring you a glass taster and I forgot. So I owe you a glass taster.
That's all good.
When you join, you get a custom SoCal Cerveceros 5-ounce glass taster. It's a little can glass taster. It's really cool.
Yeah, I like those.
You get a member card. You get access to our member-only chat. And the chat is amazing because...
What do you base the chat on? Are you on Discord or what do you guys use?
Slack.
Slack.
Shout out to Slack. You might want to,
download it.
Sponsor this show. Yeah. Slack. Brought to you by Slack.
I Love Micheladas Show brought to you by Slack.
There you go.
Potentially. I don't know.
And so all our members are on Slack. And it's cool because we have different channels and we have a channel for jobs, posting jobs within the industry.
How much does it join? SoCal Cerveceros.
That's good beer. Right now we do. We have 3 options. So the first option, base annual member due is $30.
It's cheap, man.
$30, one person, all the perks. Second option, first time members joining only, $40. Same perks, but when you're renewing your second year, you get a $10 discount off of the regular $30, so it's $20.
So it's $20.
So pay $30 and your regular annual dues are $30 forever. Well, not forever because we might have to increase one.
Yeah.
$30.
We'll let that part out.
Right.
No.
Join your first time, pay $40. When you renew, moving forward, it's $20.
Okay.
And then we have one that's also very popular for couples and relatives. It's $50. So all the perks for 2 people for $50.
Oh, dope.
And speaking of back to when I was talking about how we had a hard time recruiting women. Once we started offering the couples, we have a ton of couples.
That's what I see. There's a lot of like husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend kind of teams where it's like a really nice activity to do together. You make beer, you get drunk.
The fly. You make beer, you get drunk.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool because I think a lot of these brewers, you go to places or events and maybe your wife doesn't feel, if she's not into it, if she's not into craft beer, if she's not into brewing, maybe she's like, not into it, or you got to drag her along. We're like, no, you don't have to be a brewer to come. We welcome all. Yeah. And so it's been a few times, married couple will come. It's usually the husband who's the brewer. The wife's like, I'm just here to support my husband.
And then the wife ends up like...
Yep. They end up posting on social media.
Being a better brewer.
Yeah. No, I've seen it time and time again. And we have like, I can't remember the exact percentage, but I think we're up to like 30% of our members are women.
Wow.
From 0 to that. And if you look at the beer industry overall, people of color, our representation is very little.
Yeah.
Women is probably even less. And so we feel very, very proud, and we feel like it's our duty to not only help bring in more people of color into the homebrewing hobby, and in turn, hopefully shoveling them into the industry.
Yeah.
But also women as well. I think our club has done a great job with helping members transition into commercial jobs. The head brewer over at Border X, Lewis, is a SoCal Cervecero.
Yeah.
And that connection came through the club. Speaking of Brujeria, there's a couple partners there. There's a handful of them, but specifically, I want to say Jimmy came to the club through mutual friends, was not in Brujeria and then ended up in Brujeria and now is a partner in Brujeria. Same thing with like Feathered Serpent Brewing Company. One of our members opened the brewery, and then club members are bartending, are brewing in that brewery. And so, and there's other tons, other countless jobs or connections that's happened. And so I think like we've gone from just a club talking about brewing techniques
to doing,
but we're like this big network.
Yeah.
Because now we have chefs and cooks and people that have their own pop-up food businesses in the club. So when we produce our annual Coachella festival, it's all internal. The food that's being served is club members. The beer that's being served, it's all club members.
Who of the food pop-ups are members?
Goat Mafia.
Goat Mafia, yeah.
In the Cut Kitchen, they do like kind of craft quesadillas. Who else do we have?
Craft quesadillas. I want one of those right now.
There's a Pizza Express. There's a couple more. I mean, we have so many members now. And
well, is there space for one more? Can I join?
Yep. Yeah, just pay your dues. You're in.
Perfect. I'm joining. I'm gonna talk to my wife tonight. I want to see.
Pay the 50.
We're gonna pay the 50.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming, dude.
Thank you.
Where can people find you at?
You can
what's your personal Instagram?
At Ricky Rivera.
Okay.
Ricky Ricky, not Rickey.
No, we're gonna do the real way.
Ricky Rivera, and at Norwalk Brewhouse.
Norwalk Brewhouse. Already got the Instagram. Let's everybody follow Norwalk Brewhouse.
SoCal Cerveceros.
Let's build it up. At SoCal Cerveceros?
Yes. And we have also SoCal Cerveceria. So if you're a woman interested in brewing, or you already brew, or you just love beer, or you want to learn, join the SoCal Cerveceros. We have a whole group called the SoCal Cerveceras.
Do they have their own Instagram?
They do.
Who runs that?
A few of them. Shout out to Lali, aka Lori Gutierrez, and Tyler at Tyler Brews. Lali is at, oh my god, I forgot her.
We're gonna put it on here. We're gonna put it real big, just right over your face.
Cimarron Street's finest.
Damn, you got it.
In South Central.
Perfect.
So they kind of run the whole SoCal Cerveceras thing. And real quick before we go.
Yeah. We can stay here all day.
Okay, fine. And we're back. The SoCal Cerveceras in itself is super awesome because the women did it on their own. They started organizing their own homebrew days just to create a space for the women.
Yeah.
They've been recruiting and bringing on new women who are new to the hobby. Other women brewers who are brewing on their own but weren't really a part of a group. The cerveceras were like, come join us. And so now they're making their own noise. They're brewing their own beer. They're really, really skilled brewers. I'm super proud of what they're doing, and I can't wait to see what comes of that.
Yeah, that's super dope.
SoCal Cerveceras, I believe they're at SCC Cerveceras. I don't know how many C's are in there.
We'll put it here too.
Yeah. We'll get you all the proper links.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming by again.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming through.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
Likewise.
Cheers.
Peace.
There it is. It's that easy.